From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez and this is From the South. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has been sworn in for his second term in office. The Supreme Court President Michael Moreno presented Maduro, who then took the oath of office, before a diverse delegation of diplomats and world leaders. In his inaugural speech, Maduro said he is a president of the people and made a call for regional integration.
But I have been working with the Chancellor, drafting an idea, hopefully a group of countries, Latin American countries, of governments that keep political balance, would take the initiative of creating a group to reunite Latin America and the Caribbean, to reunify Latin America and the Caribbean, create a group for debate, dialogue, and to overcome the differences that we have today, hopefully. Venezuela has opponents who are extremely powerful and harmful. The first one, the American imperialism. But I reckon that the worst of all are those who are corrupt, those indolent who damage the country. It's even worse that all imperialism put together. It's the enemy that we are set to defeat. And there's a single way of doing so. A single way. With a moral revolution. With a spiritual revolution. A revolution of love. Love. Love for the nation. Love for earth, for history. Love for our children. Love for our grandchildren. A great revolution of love that will change spiritually to position us in a higher position. From this revolution that needs important changes and it's a new beginning that will renew the hope, renew the energy, that expands the strength towards a noble country.
And just after President Maduro was sworn in, he was recognized by the armed forces at the Bolivarian Military University of Venezuela. Thousands of soldiers welcomed the president and expressed their solidarity with the head of state. They also pledged their commitment to the prosperity and defense of the country.
To carry this sword with dignity, and with it,
acabar con tanto intervencionismo, tanta amenaza imperial,
con el imperial threats and intervention. With the example of Bolívar, everything is possible.
Sin Bolívar nada.
Without Bolívar, nothing is possible. With the country, everything is possible. Against the country, nothing is possible. That is how I receive it.
Con mucho amor.
And with love, because I know, because an example of loyalty, and our Bolivarian armed forces are an example of loyalty to the country, to the Constitution, and to the revolution. Thank you very much.
We are here supporting our president, the president of the working people, a man who has fought for all of us. We support him today because we know the attacks he has faced from other countries, which do not know what a participative democracy means, which do not know what is the situation of the working women inside the revolutionary spaces. Today we are supporting the legacy of our commander Hugo Chavez. We defend our president Nicolás Maduro Moro. Here we are, President, one more time waving the flag of freedom because we are a sovereign country, a democratic country, because no interventionist empire is going to come to our country to tell us what to do. You, Maduro, you are our president, and you will be our president if we keep voting for you. We did it, and we will keep doing it.
The UN Secretary General said he will continue to work with the government of Venezuela following the swearing in of President Maduro, who will be in office for the constitutional period of 2019-2025.
We will continue to work with the government of Venezuela, notably on the development assistance framework, on food, health, security, and nutrition. As a principled matter, we always are supportive of dialogue and regional dialogue.
The South African Communist Party has sent a congratulatory message to Maduro on his new term as president. Deputy Secretary General Solly Mapalia said the Bolivarian Revolution remains a source of inspiration for political organizations and social movements across the Global South.
This is Solly Mapalia from the South African Communist Party. We want to take this opportunity to wish Comrade Nicolas Maduro great success in his new term as President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to take forward the ideas of the great Simon Bolivar, as well as Comrade Commander Hugo Chavez, in the fight against imperialism, in the unification of the Venezuelan people and the people of Latin America and the working class worldwide, the people of the South, against imperialism, against the American offensive. Of course, we understand that the Americans have identified Venezuela as a strategic place to fight against its atrocities worldwide, including in Latin America, and therefore they will intensify those attacks on Comrade Maduro specifically. But we want to express our profound solidarity with him and to the people of Venezuela, that they can count on us throughout to be on their side in the fight to defeat the capitalist barbarism and American imperialism and world capitalist imperialism that is driven by the NATO group and their allies. Thank you very much.
And solidarity events were planned around the world in support of President Maduro and the Venezuelan people. Social organizations gathered in front of the Venezuelan embassy in Buenos Aires. They stressed the importance of defending Venezuela against imperialism and also to defend Nicaragua, Bolivia, and all of the leftist leaders facing persecution in Latin America. Another rally was held outside of the Venezuelan embassy in London. Demonstrators held banners which read, "Hands off Venezuela," and "No to U.S. blockade and U.S. intervention." People in Palestine also took to the streets in front of the Venezuelan embassy in a show of support for President Maduro. Palestinian citizens waved Venezuelan flags and banners in solidarity with the people of Venezuela. Let's take a look back at that election which Maduro won back in May 2018.
The vote was held amid an economic boycott and a siege against the country. The government of Venezuela and the opposition, represented by the so-called Democratic Roundtable, held a dialogue process in the Dominican Republic, which failed after the far-right party refused to sign the agreement, due to last-moment pressures from the United States, as announced by the Venezuelan government. Weeks later, other sectors of the opposition signed an agreement of electoral guarantees alongside the Bolivarian government. As part of these agreements, the National Electoral Council called an election for May 20, a day which took into consideration the demands of the opposition. The presidential vote of May 20 saw the participation of the Venezuelan opposition in a race which had 4 candidates in representation of more than 50 political parties and movements of electors. In addition, more than 200 observers and international companions were present, who ratified the transparency of the electoral session, reviewing its results. 16 public audits were also carried out before, during, and after the electoral process. The result was a victory for President Nicolas Maduro, who was re-elected for the period 2019-2025, with more than 67% of the valid votes.
More stories coming up. We'll be back. Welcome back. Protesters in Sao Paulo have promised to bring the Brazilian city to a halt if public transport fare increases aren't reversed. Demonstrators took to the streets to show their rejection, since bus fares have risen by double that of inflation.
Bruno Covas and Joao Doria want to show strength increasing the inflation rate. The buses do not have air conditioning and they have broken chairs. There are no bill collectors. They have to increase a lot of quality, but the price does not have to increase. They want to get the workers to give even more to the bourgeoisie, and that's why we're on the streets. And we will follow the streets and say no. 430, no. 430 is a robbery. We will win.
Thousands of people marched in the city of Buenos Aires in rejection of Argentinian President Mauricio Macri's agenda of austerity. The demonstration is the first of several planned as neoliberal policies strangle the country's economy. Inflation has risen over the past year and the peso has lost 50% of its value. Macri reached a deeply unpopular agreement with the IMF for a $57 billion loan. The terms of the agreement mean the Argentine government is limited and has to pursue a deficit of zero for 2019.
The thing is that it's not only the rates, it's also precarious work, a lack of work, the closure of companies, and the cost of food that has increased in a disproportional way.
Members of the indigenous Mapuche community in Argentina are suing international oil and gas companies for environmental damage in the Patagonia. Illegal fracking waste dumps in ancestral lands are putting local communities and wildlife at risk. The waste is said to have come from the nearby Vaca Muerta site.
Nearby, we have a landfill that is completely polluted. The companies discard everything in the land and then cover it once it's there.
International experts are optimistic for Bolivia's economic growth in 2019. The IMF projects a rise bigger than the last 5 years.
The IMF, along with the World Bank and the Economic Commission for Latin America, have all forecast a robust outturn that will propel Bolivia's economy.
This would mean Bolivia having one of Latin America's highest gross domestic products. We used to be lagging behind in growth. Now we are first. Inflation is projected to be 2.7%. It is the lowest inflation rate in Latin America, putting Bolivia ahead of other countries grappling with ballooning inflation.
International financial experts have forecast GDP growth of 4.3% for the South American country this year, whereas the projection in the national budget was slightly higher at 4.7%.
The economy is diversified. We do not just export raw materials, but we are obviously industrializing as well. The lithium industry and gas extraction projects, among others, have considerably driven economic growth.
The country's extraordinary resources are the main drivers of the economy. The nationalization of hydrocarbon companies and other strategic entities in 2006 has strengthened reserves. This has helped finance a robust industrialization project.
In the last few years, the financing of these investment projects has mainly been done through internal resources. That has changed radically because before the largest portion of financing came from outside. However, the tax deficit is projected to be quite low.
The state in its budget projected a 1.4% reduction from last year's fiscal deficit of 6.98%. New investments of more than $9 billion, which is significantly higher than the previous years, are also expected.
A gunman has held about 10 people hostage for 5 hours in a hair salon in Uruguay's capital, Montevideo. The man reportedly accused his former partner working at the salon of betraying him. He fired some shots after entering the establishment, but no one was injured. After hours of negotiation with police forces, the gunman freed the hostages and surrendered himself to the authorities. Primary school students from the Mayan indigenous community in Guatemala will be out of school at the start of the new academic term. Classrooms lack teachers and essential materials.
Close to 150 students from indigenous communities such as Ixcan and Quiche have been abandoned due to a lack of teachers.
I was scheduled to start classes yesterday, but there are no teachers, and that is the reason classes have not begun. I hope the Ministry of Education takes into account the urgent needs of the community.
They say the problem has occurred because there are 2 teachers who have never shown up for work since they were hired 9 years ago. However, they still remain employed as educators under Regulation 011.
They are still operating under an agreement, which still has them on the payroll. That agreement has been documented, but the departmental director has not sent it. It seems they don't want to send an official to this area.
The Education Ministry says the problem lies in the fact that this indigenous community was once a farm, which fell under the remote municipality of Chinique, Quiche.
According to them, this property belongs to the Chineke people, but they're incorrect. Geographically, this place belongs to the Ixcan. Really, the only problem we have is that the area code belongs to the Chineke.
Authorities from the Departments of Education say they are, in fact, aware of this problem and have voted to rectify the concern soon. They will submit a remedial proposal during the 2019 cycle.
We'll try to speak with the head of the relevant authority, but only after other requirements are met will they assign a teacher, when the coordinator has given the nod of approval and says he has a teacher available.
And so these indigenous communities fear the lack of teachers is a problem that will persist for some time and will affect the start of the 2019 school term.
In Peru, the president of the Congress has resigned from Keiko Fujimori's Popular Force Party. In a social media message, Daniel Salaverry says he felt compelled to follow his convictions. On Tuesday, the party presented a vote of no confidence against him. Salaverry's resignation follows the departure of 4 other lawmakers from the party. A court in the United States has denied the release of former Colombian minister Andrés Felipe Arias. Arias is serving a 17-year prison sentence for corruption during his time as agriculture minister. Since his sentencing in 2014, Arias has requested for a release under bail several times, but have all been denied. A Colombian social leader has been killed in the southern Caquetá department. 40-year-old Miguel Antonio Gutierrez is the 7th social leader to be killed in the first 10 days of 2019. Several armed men broke into Gutierrez's residence and shot him. The victim had received multiple death threats over the past few months. Last year, 164 social leaders were killed in Colombia. We're taking one last break, but stay with us. Welcome back. It's been 25 years since the fall of South Africa's white supremacist nationalist government. Late global icon Nelson Mandela became the first black president back in 1994, ushering hope after decades of colonial and apartheid oppression for the majority black people. Telesur correspondent in South Africa, Matuba Matlaje, looks at how the country is dealing with its painful past.
The country is still grappling with the stubborn legacy of apartheid, which includes massive inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor grew after 1994. It also appears the political power handed to the liberation movement did not do much to decolonize the country.
Policy choices that the ANC made is partly why we sit with the inequality that we had. So, for example, the ANC did not introduce free compulsory education when it started, and that would have been a way to empower those who are locked out of the economy with the necessary skills to be absorbed.
In its first few years in power, the ANC government chose a patriotic black bourgeoisie, which included current President Cyril Ramaphosa, to try and de-racialize the economy.
What you had was white established interests who used black people as the acceptable faces to be able to do business with government. So you had the creation of a comprador bourgeoisie.
Not only did the white minority population thrive economically after independence, their history, which many black South Africans would rather forget, was also preserved. This is a school named after the architect of apartheid, Hendrik Verwoerd, who was the prime minister in the 1940s. The school now admits black children. In fact, most of the children who go to this school are black. One of the many ironies of post-apartheid South Africa. Political analyst Angelo Fick says while there was never a denazification process, the ruling ANC has made strides in changing lives of millions of people.
Research in South Africa tells us that 6 out of every 10 South Africans recently polled indicate that they would vote for the African National Congress in the upcoming elections. And I think too often we judge the party by its spectacular and very public failures. And ordinary South Africans certainly judge the party by that, but they also judge the party by the very specific changes that have been brought about in their lives over the last 25 years.
The symbols of apartheid and colonialism, like the building here behind me, continue to haunt South Africa 25 years after democracy. With elections on the horizon, it remains to be seen if the people of this country will give the ruling ANC yet another mandate to fulfill the promises of 1994. Matuba Mahlachi, Telesur, Pretoria.
2 police officers have reportedly died in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Violent clashes were reported between supporters of President-elect Felix Tshisekedi and suspected supporters of the runner-up Martin Fayulu. Police officers used tear gas and rubber bullets to separate the 2 groups outside the headquarters of Tshisekedi's party. Fayulu has rejected the Electoral Commission's declaration of Tshisekedi as the winner of the presidential election.
We were celebrating the victory of our president, who won these elections, and suddenly we see a group of people carrying MLC flags, sticks, bottles and stones. They started coming after us and ruining our party.
Public sector workers have protested against the U.S. government shutdown in the capital, Washington, D.C. Demonstrators demanded a return to work as the shutdown entered its 20th day. Government employees are unable to work during the shutdown and are not being paid. Donald Trump's administration has refused to work with Democrats in Congress until they approve $5.7 billion in funding for a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border.
We want to work with pay! We want to work with pay! We want to work!
Government workers are dedicated public servants that we work hard every day. My husband works hard every day to make sure that we are safe as a country, and that it's terrifying to think that our president thinks of us as pawns and that he's just going to play a political game with our livelihoods and whether or not we are going to have food on the table, whether my kids are going to be able to go to preschool, whether or not we're going to be able to pay our mortgage, and how long we're going to be able to last. It's on the president, and he can solve this, and I hope that he does.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has visited the U.S.-Mexico border, hoping to build support for the wall.
They say a wall is medieval. Well, so is a wheel. A wheel is older than a wall. And I looked, and every single car out there, even the really expensive ones that the Secret Service uses, and believe me, they are expensive. I said, do they all have wheels? Yes. Oh, I thought it was medieval. The wheel is older than the wall. You know that? And there are some things that work. You know what? A wheel works and a wall works. Nothing like a wall.
And hundreds of anti-corruption protesters gather in Bucharest at an event marking Romania's presidency of the European Union. They waved EU flags and targeted current Prime Minister Viorica Dăncilă with their chants. The country is mired in corruption scandals as it takes the reins of the bloc. Thousands of students in Belgium marched to protest against the effects of climate change. Representatives of the European Parliament were in attendance as demonstrators demanded greater European Union involvement in combating global warming.
We think we can't change the political climate without changing the system. Otherwise, it won't work. They all just think about money. And if they only think about money, they are not thinking about the weather. So we need to change the system.
The opposition leader in Israel, Avi Gabay, has condemned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's conduct in office as he is currently accused of corruption. The Labour Party leader also advocated for dialogue with Palestinians.
We will try to reach a negotiation with the Palestinians, and we will enforce freedom of speech. We will heal the tears of the nation. We will protect the Supreme Court, and we will cancel Netanyahu's corrupt laws.
And with that, we end our news brief today, but this and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And we're also on social media, so go ahead and follow us. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.